This episode is brought to you by the good humans at the Front Porch Restaurant. The Front Porch invites you to celebrate 20 years of Southern hospitality in the Mission. Come eat some of their storied dishes: fried chicken you dream about, shrimp and grits with red-eye gravy, and Dr. Pepper braised short ribs. Enjoy great cocktails, a well-curated wine and beer selection, or creative NA drinks. Slushy, anyone? And here's what's awesome. Simply mention Storied SF to receive 10% off your bill. Remember, when there's too many delicious choices, just say, "Fuck it, get a bucket."
Godzilla の出没が確認されています。安全のため、ゴジラを見かけても近づかないようにしてください。This is San Francisco Self-Defense Fire Brigade. There have been confirmed Godzilla sightings in the city. For your safety and the safety of others, please leave Godzilla alone.
That was the PA system belonging to Kiri, the Japanese fire truck. I'm Jeff, and this is Storied San Francisco, a show about the artists, activists, and working people who make this city so special. Before I get into this one, tomorrow is 415 Day here in San Francisco. I'll be joining Lane and Fredo of 415 Zine at Madrone from 6 to 9 p.m. So come on by and help us celebrate everything there is to love about SF. In this episode, meet and get to know Todd Lappin, the human who imported and operates Kiri. Originally from New Jersey, Todd has called the 94110 home for 34 years. Check back Thursday for part 2, when Todd will share the story of how he brought Kiri from Japan to San Francisco. Here's Todd Lappin.
So yeah, I'm Todd Lappin. I live here in Bernal Heights, San Francisco, on the north side. I've been in San Francisco and in the 94110 for 34 years.
Is that all?
34, 35 years. Yeah, one zip code, which is a little weird. But I'm originally from the East Coast, and I grew up in New Jersey. And I do like to say that even after 30 whatever years in San Francisco, New Jersey is like a stain that doesn't wipe out.
Okay.
Yeah, it just doesn't wash out. So I'm kind of aggressive, kind of New Jersey-ish in a lot of ways.
Right.
Loud by California standards. But you know, I think I found an equilibrium. But yeah, I grew up on the East Coast, and
The pretty part of
I did.
New
I grew
Jersey?
up in I joke about it, but I grew up in the Ohio part of New Jersey.
Got it.
I grew up
That's another word for it.
about 60 miles west of Manhattan, due
Okay.
west, along Interstate 80, the mother highway.
Yep.
And the other end. And yeah, I would like to say you could probably write how to get from my house now to my house where I grew up on the back of a envelope. You know, just
Oh, yeah.
it's like 4 turns. And
Amazing.
Yeah, just turn right, turn left, go 2,000 miles, then yeah. But
You don't have to date yourself at all, but maybe can you give us a decade
no, yeah, I don't
of
mind
like
dating myself.
when you're a teenager?
Yeah, I'm a total Gen Xer.
Yep.
Grew up in the 80s, basically. All the Gen X stereotypes. Latch-key kid. Feral on bikes.
Yeah.
I was totally one of those kids on bikes.
Just getting hurt all the time.
Well, I was pretty lucky, but we had lots of opportunities to get hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots
Yeah.
of opportunities for it. Yeah, and it was really true. So I grew up in a little town. It's called Hackettstown. It's where they make M&Ms.
Oh yeah.
The big it's still a factory town, but the factory is an M&M factory.
Amazing.
Where Mars is based, M&M Mars. And it's a little town of about 9,000 people, and I really was like kids on bikes. So it really was much more Midwestern in a lot of ways.
There's high schools that big.
Yeah, right, exactly. It was pretty small, and it had like small town life. But New York was like an hour away, so I had plenty of New York stuff. I was born in New York. I grew up in New York until I was like 5.
Oh, in the city.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I'm like a native New Yorker, you
right.
could say, although I actually, identify more as a douchebag from New Jersey. And
He said it, folks, not me.
But then you went to college in New England, and then but the backstory is that I did have a little bit of a Bay Area history in my life.
Okay.
My dad was in the Navy when I was born, so I was born in New York, but then ended up in Oakland for a year.
Was he stationed in Alameda?
He was stationed, at Alameda.
Amazing,
Yeah.
my dad too.
He was, yeah.
Yep.
And I don't remember any of this because it was really before I could talk and everything. But I,
Right.
was in Oakland for a year, and then we moved back to New York when I started to actually remember, have living memories. And then we moved to New Jersey. But a couple things happened along the way. One was that, I've always liked, had I don't want to even overstate it, but just like a fascination with what I would call maybe like vernacular cars, like things that like are working vehicles.
Things with wheels that move.
Yeah, but not just that move, but like that have like a purpose in life. Like they're people use them for jobs.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've always just kind of found that interesting, partially because I tend to like some of the accessories that come with them, like blinky lights and all that stuff. But also just like kind of the sort of the honesty of them, I think,
yeah.
aesthetically. And like they're usually just pretty simple and honest and functional.
Yep.
High on like the idea of functionality.
And they're kind of everywhere.
Yeah, they're kind of everywhere.
They're all around us.
Yeah. One little backstory, which is relevant, was like to the extent that I have like a little rosebud in my life, like a Citizen Kane kind of a situation. It was like, so I grew up in this town of about 9,000 people that was the big town to a bunch of surrounding farm communities.
Okay.
It was like you can imagine all this.
The hub.
Central Valley is the same. Like you're the town of 9,000 people is where everybody goes. Yeah, and
Yes.
so there was this town just outside of ours that had a little volunteer fire department, and I remember I was in high school and were selling a Cadillac ambulance.
Oh, what?
One of those like cool things, like in the 70s. That was what they didn't have box vans. They basically had these companies, the same people who made hearses.
Okay.
Also a fascinating genre.
Yeah.
Literally the same companies would take a Cadillac and turn it into basically a station wagon, and it would be used as an ambulance.
Amazing.
Yeah, that was just what ambulances were for 20 years.
You couldn't
like
really
60s
stand out.
60s to probably around the early 80s. And so, but the volunteer fire department near me was selling their Cadillac ambulance, and for $600, which was cheap even in 1988 or whatever this was.
Yeah.
And I didn't buy it. And they're gigantic. It was ridiculous. But there's always been this like, oh my God, I could have had that ambulance. So I think that was always there, a little unrequited itch.
Okay.
But concurrently, also when I was a kid in New Jersey, I just started getting into Asian culture.
Okay.
Not really sure why. It wasn't manga. It wasn't anime. To be honest, it was, if I really think about it, it was sort of early learning about just like the history of the Vietnam War and what were we doing there. And I was like,
You were like humanizing them.
Yeah, basically that's right. Thank you for that.
Which I don't think
that's a good way
was
of
a very
putting it.
popular thing in American culture,
Yeah,
is to humanize the enemy.
Might not have been.
like-
And again, this was like literally kind of the first half of the 80s, if I
Right.
think about it in time.
Right.
But yeah, I was just like kind of trying to understand why did we do all that and who were these
Right.
people, and that seems like a dumb idea. Why did we do it?
Right.
Not like super politically, but really just trying to understand it.
Yeah, just basic shit.
Yeah, it did seem like it was a dumb idea, which I guess is a political thing, but beyond that, I wasn't really bringing a whole lot of energy to it.
Yeah.
And then through that, started learning about essentially there were all these things like learning about Confucianism. There was like all these like you get to the basic books. There was a seminal book called Fire in the Lake, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
Anyway, it was like one of those like popular books about what's up with Vietnamese culture from the 70s that I read. And again, what exposed me to a whole lot of ideas that I had never Asian culture and Vietnamese culture is very rooted in Confucianism. You're like, what the hell is that?
What is that? Right.
So, and then when I got to college, I really did start to pull on that,
Okay.
just out of curiosity. And
You said you went to New England? Where
yeah,
about?
I went to Brown,
Okay.
Brown University in Providence, and I ended up basically studying, meandering journey to be sure, but both Chinese and Japanese at various points, and ultimately ended up studying Japanese. Went to Japan. Doing the whole semester abroad thing, absolutely hated it.
Oh.
Yeah, was left in failure, but ended up traveling around Asia quite a bit. and got into China, and then sort of came back and leaned into China. And
This is you're like in your kind of early 20s?
College, literally college.
College age, yeah.
And then so basically kind of did a mid-academic career pivot from Japan to China, from modern Japan to ancient China, and ended up basically studying the history of Taoism effectively, which is super nerdy, but fantastic.
But on location.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And it was like all these things. I had a great professor that was his passion, and so he totally brought up a generation of which I was one of them, and I'm really grateful for it. So anyway, I nerded out on Chinese intellectual history.
Was this on your own or was this through school?
That was school. That was literally my academic degree is in Chinese intellectual history, basically.
Amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And super nerdy. And but then I was very into China for a long time, and then right after college, basically, I had a woman I was dating who lived here. I had some roots here. I had also come here a bit in high school because I had some friends who lived here.
Okay, interesting. Do you remember your earlier memory of your dad being stationed in Alameda in the Oakland part? You didn't remember. Do you remember your first memory?
No, I don't remember my first memory, but I do remember it being part of our family story.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Or first impressions as a teenager?
No, the first impressions I really had were probably when I came out in my teens with my parents. Again, it was kind of, they did the hey, this is where we used to live, and it was great. I remember Fisherman's Pier 39 very vividly. Mm-hmm. And then I came in high school. I went to a private school down the street, but it was a boarding school, and I was a day student. So I had these friends who lived elsewhere, even though we were high school friends. And he grew up here, so we came out here for junior year spring break.
Oh wow!
And that was actually the real one that kind of.
Do you know what year it was? Remember?
Yeah, 84. 1984.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I do remember it quite vividly. And that was really when the hook got put in me, because I was on my own with some friends, and just lots of shenanigans. But it was great. And
how would you describe said hook?
Well, I mean, it was just it felt really urban, and I liked urban. Again, I was hanging out in New York a lot, so New York is urban stuff was familiar.
Yeah.
But just the level of beauty and the thoughtfulness and everything that the East, these are all cliches at this point, but all the things that the East Coast isn't, where people were just kind of, there was something beyond that. I mean, it's a little bit later, but it's continuing with this. When I first got here, when I actually moved here, which was, at that point 6 years later or so.
Okay.
It was one of those deals where when I first landed here, there was this guy next door who lived in the next door apartment, and he was a contractor. But he had also had a PhD in something super, super nerdy.
Right.
You know what I mean? So Bay Area,
right.
And things like that. And then I actually met, when I first got here, at a party in Marin, I met a guy who was a grad student at Berkeley in the same stuff I had studied, which again is super esoteric. You never expect to talk to anybody about that ever again in your life. And then you end up staying up till 4 a.m. with some guy having, this great conversation.
Fun.
We became housemates, long story, but then I ended up doing stuff around China, a lot more around China.
See if you agree with this as far as the difference between New York City and San Francisco. I did live in New York very briefly for 1 year right before I moved here. And I still love New York, but one of the reasons I couldn't live there is that every aspect of life felt competitive.
Oh, yeah.
And here, there's people who compete in worlds that I'm not a part of, but it's easier to exist here non-competitively.
I have a whole rap on this, which probably actually would be not a bad little book, but I'm not going to write it, ever. So if anybody wants to steal this, go for it.
Free idea, y'all.
Yeah, free idea. But basically, it's essentially, the East Coast is about anointing, and California is about creating. And they need each other. It's not like one's better than the other, but
and I'll put this out there for the record, since it is my show, but I think we have better New York pizza here now than they have, let's say, burritos there.
I'm not going to go quite that far, but it has gone a lot better. I mean, I will say,
our pizza's gotten really good.
It's gotten really good, yeah. I didn't eat pizza or bagels here for 25 years.
Because you couldn't.
They sucked. Yeah,
right,
they all
you
sucked.
couldn't, yeah.
We had Noah's House of Fake Jews, as I call it, and we had just a lot of what I call California tomato bread. Yeah. Which was just really just bad shit. But we're over that. It's good.
Yeah.
I'm really happy now. I feel more whole.
All right. Well, that concludes the New York versus San Francisco portion of this podcast.
Yeah, but no, this is like a meaningful little bit.
But it
like
is, it's totally,
my little rap on this, again,
part
this
of your
is
story,
something
yeah.
I've been saying for years, but like, is like, if I walked up to you in New Jersey with everybody who I'm friends with, and I go, I got this idea. We're going to use our mobile phones, and people are going to come to, pick you up, and they'll just give you a ride home. Your best friend would go to you, bro, that is the dumbest thing you could do with your life right now. Right. Like, whatever, maybe, but like, don't waste your life.
Yeah.
And the dream dies right there, right? And here, you have the same conversation, and your friend, or anybody, whether they're a friend, VC, whatever, they'll say the same thing. They'll be like, yeah,
let's do it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So cool.
Right.
Yeah, I love this.
Yeah.
And so you'll keep going.
That's the creativity part of what you're just talking about. Anointing versus creating.
Yeah. I mean, they might be thinking, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life, but they won't say that to you.
Right. They'll throw a lot of money at a lot of dumb
they'll be like,
things.
sure, right on.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And like, it turns out that is really meaningful within the scale of a regional culture. So
Totally. Let's go back to before you moved here. So like, it's starting to enter your life. You're liking it. It's your word, I think, was hook.
Yeah.
It hooked you. But you moved here. So what was that?
Yeah,
like,
that
what
was just like, and that was
a really strong hook.
Yeah, it was a really strong hook, and it was, well, I mean, I will say, I'll put a plug in for one of my absolute favorite places in the world, which is Providence, Rhode Island.
Okay.
Is a really great city. If you're ever in the area, Providence is really, really surprisingly low-key cool.
Awesome.
And I loved being there, and I didn't really live in the dorm for my last couple years. In fact, I worked there for a year after college. I really just enjoyed that place. And when I got to the Mission, it felt like Providence.
Oh.
It was like a similar kind of a housing stock, similar kind of scale, similar kind of walkable neighborhoods.
Different weather,
which again was like, right, exactly. It was like all the nice parts, but without all the dumb parts. And so it was very relatable.
Yeah.
Apart from my natural affinity, but like even on like the life I was living and then the life I could be living.
Okay.
And like I said, I'm still in the same zip code, which just shows how hooked I am on that particular street texture.
Yep.
But yeah,
this
so that was
if
it.
my math is correct, kind of early 90s?
I moved here in 91.
91, okay.
Yeah, so there was not much going on in the city. This was like the period, in hindsight the story becomes clearer, but of basically when sort of zine culture was really going very active, and I would say zine culture was very active, especially, and even in the Mission, it was literally stuff where people would always be like, and I did come to start doing some writing, and eventually, and journalism specifically, and so journalism, it was mostly journalism, and there was just a lot of opportunities because everybody was publishing things.
Right. Did you publish anything on your own, or did you write for other people?
No, I was writing for other people. I mean, under my own name. I had a mentor really early on when I got here, which was related to that guy I met on the beach. Like, literally, it was like, these are direct links in a chain of ending up with this great mentor, Orville Schell, who was the dean.
Oh, yeah.
Later became the dean of the journalism school.
Yeah.
But he was like the guy he wrote a lot of contemporary Chinese history. So I had been to college a few years earlier reading his books, and then he needed an editor, so I ended up editing a book he was working on.
There you go.
He hired me basically just as a freelance right out of college, helped me edit my book. And I said, great, you don't have to pay very much, but a mentor would be awesome, and that was a really wonderful relationship.
Yep.
So I started I was always kind of more interested in editing than writing, but I always have done a fair bit of writing as well.
Okay, I'm an editor that's what pays the bills, barely, but yeah. So I relate to that. Okay, so we don't have to speed round it, but like early 90s, did you ever leave? You're still here.
Yeah, I'm still here. I've never left, really.
Yeah, literally the same zip code as
same zip code. A couple of different apartments, but same zip code. It's been great. I mean, the classic question everybody asks is like, how much has it changed? And you must have seen a lot of change. And I do say this, and I know this is not a common opinion, but I don't think it's changed enough.
Right. Okay.
Like, it really should have changed a lot more.
Okay.
Mostly because the city's really different. Like the city was shrinking.
Yeah.
And it's not shrinking anymore.
Right.
And so the lack of accommodation of that has become its own set of problems. But and yeah, the extent to which literally, every apartment I have lived in, the block looks exactly the same.
Oh, wow. That might be a symptom of the 94110.
Yeah.
More than, right? It's like,
Right. But I mean, yes, the corner store might have changed a little bit, but the texture of the corner store hasn't changed.
Right,
Like,
right.
So yeah, it's still very much the same.
Yeah.
But I love that too. Don't get me wrong, but it's just like I don't necessarily think it's necessarily served us well either.
Right. I can fast forward us just a little bit because our worlds intersected, and I'm trying to remember exactly how. But I was working on a Muni project, I'll just say, and our worlds collided probably like in the early 2010s or so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what were you up to then? Remind me.
So yeah,
and let listeners.
Really quickly, I had a magazine career.
Okay.
And I was at Wired for a long time.
Oh, nice.
In the early Wired, I was an early Wired person, which I literally remember when that was happening. Again, moment, and all my zine friends were going to Wired, so I was like, oh, all right. And
down on 3rd Street.
Yeah, on 3rd Street, right? And they're still in that building. And then after a magazine career, I started doing some more tech stuff, and then I still sort of wanted to do journalism as a hobby. So you met me through Bernalwood.
Yes, that was it. Thank
which
you.
was
Thank you very much.
like probably in around 2005, I moved to Bernal Heights, where I live now. And when I moved there, I just kind of was like learning about the neighborhood. There wasn't really a good news outlet, and so I just kind of created one. And it was again peak bloggy period, as you yourself know, and which again I actually think was similar to the zine period. Like just there's a lot to really recommend those little moments in time.
A little bit cheaper maybe on the
to
cheaper,
publish. A lot easier, right?
Easier
Right?
entry.
It's true. It's true. That was the promise of it. Was
and less ink on your hands.
Yeah,
maybe
less
at
ink
Kinko's.
and less Kinko's. A lot less Kinko's. And it was cool. So I started basically a mostly serious, but not entirely serious, news blog about Bernal Heights. And that's how I think we met.
If it was totally serious, fewer people probably would have
It would have been really boring to me.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, exactly. Okay, well, we're at a good point, I think, to talk about the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
The reason that I reached out to you to do an episode, I didn't know it was you.
Which is good. I like
it
that.
Yeah, right. Congrats.
That's a feature.
Yeah, I mean, we can just like scrap everything we're doing right now and just start the podcast here.
Yeah, no, where do you want to start?
Let's hear the story. It is available online. I've seen it. It's on Instagram. But let's hear it in your words.
Yeah, no, I mean the story is different. Sort of the full story is a little different. So, in between being here and doing these other things, I sort of rediscovered my Japanese ancestry, which I joke about that, but of course I'm not ethnically Japanese at all. But I had studied Japan, then went there, had a terrible time, and said I'm done with this culture, basically. Okay. And that was true for 15 years. And then I had a friend who was going through a difficult divorce at the time, and he wanted to go to Japan. This was 2004, and I had never really been in Tokyo. I'd always been in these like other. When I was studied there. I joked I was in the Fremont of Osaka.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, in hindsight, no wonder I didn't have the best time when I was 19. Yeah. So anyway, so I decided to give Japan a try. 2004 again. Had a fantastic visit. Had enough kind of. Japanese language left over in RAM that I could just function.
Okay.
And then became pretty hooked and started going a lot. So I've basically been going to Japan kind of nonstop since then, around 2004, kind of at least once a year.
That's a minute, yeah.
Or for the last, 20.
That's enough to have, like, you have friends there?
Yeah. And well, then what happened was, including some work trips, and was on a work trip, I ended up meeting this guy who was now we would call him a car creator. Like he was early days of YouTube was doing this Japanese car content, and we didn't have the word creator really yet.
Right.
But anyway, I was doing some work, and I met him through work, and he took me out, and we went to. I've always been interested in cars. I've always loved them, but didn't really even own one. Well, I shouldn't say. I've always driven Jeeps.
Okay.
Because I've been a skier. That was my other reason for coming out to California. Was I could do the ski thing and have an urban life and if you grew up skiing in the Poconos, I was just joking about with a friend, like, as a kid, even, like, I would remember being on these, like, chairlifts, and it's, like, literally dark, and I'm going, just skiing, and I was like, I like skiing, but I was like, there must be something better than this.
There's got to be another way.
Father, can't there be something better than this? Anyway, it turns out it's California. So that was, like, so I basically always just had, this is another part of the things, is that I have always driven SUVs before they were cool, but because I needed to get into the snow, and I always made them look like company trucks.
Okay.
So I was creating this fake identity for my trucks, still do this, that looks like a business, an ambiguous sort of business.
I love it.
But fits in a commercial environment. Mm-hmm. And again, it has a lot of benefits, including when I was street parking, which I did for a long time. It just didn't look as blingy.
There's something very San Francisco about doing that.
Yeah.
To me.
Well, I actually started doing it when I was in Rhode Island, but because in Rhode Island, when I was living in Providence, this is also more Providence, there was a yellow zone in front of my house, so I couldn't park there. So, but when I made my truck look like a company, I could park in front of my house. So it was great.
That.
That's very Rhode Island.
Yes.
And I just carried that over. In fact, to this day, the logo says Providence and San Francisco.
Yes. Yes. Bi-coastal.
Yeah, bi-coastal. It makes it look more global.
Exactly.
And the fake company is called Telstar Logistics.
Yes.
So I've always had this like aesthetic, but I was always driving trucks, not cars, and only one of them. But went to Japan on this trip, and basically had been going to Japan and just noticing cars, just not really even in a nerdy way, but just literally as design objects. Like, wow, that's really, I like the way that one looks. Anyway, this guy was like an owner of and leader of the subculture of this one particular car that I really liked. So on this one night, I went to grad school on this one car and just came back being obsessed.
Okay.
And so basically what ended up happening was my interest in Japan and my sort of growing interest in cars kind of collided. And it's been really, that was about almost, it was literally 10 years ago, almost to the day.
Okay.
And that's just been really a fertile thing.
And then?
Yeah, and then what happened? Right. And then what happened? So
I'm sorry, I just don't have any follow-up questions.
No,
I know that there's more to the story.
I'm being ranty, but
it's okay.
But that car was for those following along at home, the car people are like, what car was it? It was a R32 Nissan Skyline. Okay. Which most people learn about in video games and stuff like that, but I just am too old for all that. But I just noticed it because I was like, oh, it's a cool car. And so I ended up buying one and importing it from Japan. So federal law, this is really relevant. Federal law is that we are allowed to import any car from anywhere in the world as long as it's 25 years old.
Oh, in other words, like what is it, like public domain or one of those?
Yeah, it's
one
a
of those
similar
laws,
kind of thing. Like all the regulations that would normally apply about American standards it has to meet are void when the car is 25 years old, and it's 25 years old from literally the day of manufacture. Okay. And so what's happened in this really lovely, this is another little nerdy digression, but it's really relevant, is that rule has been in place since the 80s. And the difference of a 80s car versus a 60s car used to be really dramatic. Right. When you start to get into the 2000s or the 2010s, the difference between a 90s car and a car from today is much narrower. Right. And in other words, they're much higher quality. And in some ways, I don't want to say better, but they have qualities which are just not...
They can be just as good.
They can be just as good.
Yeah.
And so starting around 2005, literally, we entered this period when suddenly all these really cool Japanese cars that a bunch of American kids, not me, mind you, but had grown up always thinking the car word for it is they're made of unobtainium. You can't have them. Right. You know? But suddenly we were starting to be allowed to have them. Okay. And so the car I was interested in had just turned 25. And so I basically figured out how to import one, which mostly involves working with an importer. There's companies who do this. There's a lot of weirdness you have to do for California emissions. Sure. Because while the car is legal federally, you still have to get license plates, and California dictates what you have to do to get license plates, which is different than federal law. Sure. So you can get it to your driveway very, very easily, but getting license plates is really, really hard. Yeah. But getting it to your house, literally no problem. Very easy.
That was Todd Lappin. We recorded this episode at Pinhole Coffee in Bernal Heights. On the next episode of Storied San Francisco, hear the story of how Todd found and imported Kiri the Japanese fire truck. Part 2 drops this Thursday, wherever you get podcasts. Music for Storied San Francisco was produced, performed, and curated by Otis McDonald. Our contributing producer is Aaron Lim of Bitch Talk Podcast. And the show is produced and hosted by me, Jeff Hunt. Now in our 8th season, we have more than 300 episodes available on our website, storiedsf.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If possible, please rate and review the show. I want to know what you think. Find us on Substack for our monthly newsletter and more. And follow us on Instagram and Threads at storiedsf. Reach us there or email us at storiedsf@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Try to stay hopeful in these dark times. Keep being wacky, creative, and kind out there. And we'll see you next time on Storied San Francisco. We acknowledge and respect the first humans of the unceded land we call San Francisco, the Ramaytush Ohlone. We condemn the genocide of these and other tribes across the Western Hemisphere. We honor their legacy and history, and we support rematriation and sovereignty efforts.